Assembly Member McCartney.
Yes, I want to turn. My first question is for the Mayor about the use of resources.
Yeah.
And we've talked already about the strategy of closing police front counters. And I wanted to know, because you were unable to tell us on Monday at the Budget Committee, what savings do you plan to make from closing those 65 front counters?
I think from memory, in the estate, the savings are about 51 million or so.
I think you said around 60 million at the Budget Committee on Monday, but you were unable to tell us what part of that was front counters. Have you since got that information for us? It was one of the main questions we asked you on Monday.
Yeah. I think that, well, I mean, from the saving from the closure of the closures in the estate, as I say, about 51 million. I'm more than happy, Joanne, if we can winnow out these figures for you. If there's some way of doing that, I don't know whether Bernard, you've got any detail on that.
The only thing that might help me is that I can give you some overall numbers, and then converting the numbers sometimes into costs is a bit of a difficult thing because you have to decide how much a building is worth and then how much.
And of course, a front counter is only part of a building as well.
That's right. Yeah. So I think, and I didn't have notes to the question, so we quite have to provide whatever we've got. But the broad plan, as I said earlier, is to take a third of the estate away. What we know is that at the moment we've got around 800 buildings, of which 500 are operational, of which 136 are police stations, and each of the police stations has a front counter. The proposal in the future is that we will reduce the number of police stations with front counters, I think you're aware, to just over 70. So that gives you some broad numbers. I think then breaking down the costs associated with each is a little more difficult. But what that will allow us to do not only is to reduce the costs of the buildings, but of course the people that we have employed in them to just merely keep the front counters open. And that will lead to a significant reduction in the number of people employed in that venture.
But can I stick to the cost of the property cost at the moment? Because it seems to me if you're going for a consultation on closing something, if you don't know the actual cost of it, the public are going to say, well, how can we judge how effective it is?
Yeah, I think what the public also, I think what the public are also getting is a pretty clear understanding. I think why these consultations are valuable. There is an extensive chance to debate the actual utility of front counters and how we want, as a society, how we want to interact with the police and how actually the public really want to be able to interact with the police. And obviously it's vital to keep a 24-hour station in every borough, and that is going to be guaranteed. But one of the most interesting statistics to come out of this exercise is that in the whole of London, from the hours of 7 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning, only 50 crimes or incidents are reported, or fewer than 50, are reported at police stations. And there is clearly scope to interact more efficiently with the public by getting the police to come to you. That's what the police want to do. They want the public to ring up and for them to attend the scene. And I think that is the thing that people will instinctively find a better way of doing things. Clearly there are particular crime types, rape, domestic violence, where we've got to be careful about how we do it, and obviously it's very important that there are now many more rape crisis centres than there were, and that is something that the police will attend to with particular care. But again, even victims of rape and domestic violence are not necessarily, in my view, going to want to attend a police front counter when the police could come to them or they could be taken to a rape crisis centre.
I'm still going to repeat my wish for figures on the cost of front counters. If you can provide them afterwards, I would appreciate that, Commissioner.
Well, if we can do it. I mean, Joanne, I don't,
yes.
What we've got.
I think what we can I say. My job is to ask questions and to ensure that through this process you've actually taken account of what the cost is and what an alternative would be. So perhaps I can move on now and ask, how much will it cost to set up these new contact points? Have other providers suggested that you may have to pay rent for them? Do you have to fit anything out? And have you got any costings for those?
I can't give you any costings.
No, I think to be fair, I think the Deputy Mayor said all along is that the thing that we are more certain about is the things that we are closing. I think the investments in other places, whether it be post offices or wherever, I think are less well developed and have got to be done alongside the people who might want to do this. So the first thing is to establish who might want to, and secondly whether or not there's any change to their premises, or whether or not we would have to share the cost. The final thing, of course, if all we did was to move the front counters into a post office and then have to staff it, there is no saving of people.
That's why that's exactly the question I'm asking. What
we are saying is, first of all, that part of the work we're now embarked on. I think, to be fair, everybody's trying to be clear about what the proposal is of change for the Metropolitan Police. Then in developing the proposal in other places, that's where we need to talk to partners about what that would look like. But I do think it's fair in that conversation to talk about not only the building costs, but also the people we've had tied up in these front counters. Because at the end of the day, we get 5.25 million people telephone us. That's the way the majority of people contact the police. We made a promise, as you know, this year, that where people wanted us to go, we would not crime screen their incidents out. That's led this year to a 38% increase in the number of people we've gone to them rather than the reverse, which means that 36,000 people have had us go to them this year. And the prediction is in 2012-13, that will add up to 128,000 people that we went to them. So we're trying to meet that need first of all. And I think the other one part of the cost, which has really got to be taken into account, at the moment, with the front counters we have, the 136, we currently have 180 public access officers, and we tie up 450 police officers to fill the gaps as well. So a total of 630 people that are committed to the front counter. It's a very significant financial commitment in salaries. Now, in the future, we will have 246 public access officers and around 50 full-time officers who might provide the resilience. That's a halving of the number of people involved in keeping front counters open. As the Mayor's already said, where relatively few people ask for that help, and yet we constantly get criticism, particularly sometimes here, about not seeing officers on the street, not attending incidents. And surely one of the things we've got to do is to deploy officers to where it's most appropriate. So they are difficult decisions. I'm not at all insensitive to that. But I think it's a sensible choice, but does need to be worked through in the detail in different areas.
So I am concerned that we don't have the cost of of closing these front counters. We don't have the cost.
The cost of closing the front. It's not a cost. It's a saving.
Can I finish my question? We don't know that. Well, we don't know the savings that you're going to make by closing these front counters. You don't know the cost of any new contact points. So can I ask you, do you have any agreements in principle from third-party providers for these new contact points yet?
They aren't agreed in principle. I think, as I said already, is that the things that are more certain are the things for which we're fully in control. The things which we have to work in partnership with others, we will have to take time to work with people. And I think, to be fair about the cost, I think it's a fair question to isolate the front counter costs. But I think what we're being clear about is that the overall saving, well, first of all, we're going to get a capital receipt of some of the order, we think, some of the order of £300 million.
Did you not think of
investing
that in some
if
new
I could just finish my question, Joanne, which is that, is that within the 300, as well as the 300 million capital receipt, there is a potential for £40 million savings just in not having to service these buildings, and then there's a further saving of something in the order of 11 to 20 million, which is about the staffing costs as well. So I think we can, I'm sure we will be able to isolate those costs separately, but I think the overall effect is a saving and I believe an improvement in service too.
Okay.